My name is Penny Harrington, and I am 68 years old. I never imagined spending Christmas shivering in 7-degree weather outside my own son Anthony's home. His words still echo in my mind. "Stay outside, you're not welcome." I stood there clutching the $50,000 family heirloom I had brought, as his gift, tears freezing on my cheeks. That day changed everything. After 77 desperate calls and that humiliation, I finally understood what I needed to do. If you are watching this, please take a moment to let me know where you are viewing from. Hit that like button and subscribe to join me on this painful journey of betrayal and ultimate redemption. Anthony was my pride and joy from the moment he was born. I raised him alone after my husband James died in a construction accident when Anthony was only 5 years old. The insurance money barely covered the funeral expenses, leaving me to support our son on my secretary's salary. Those early years were a struggle of endless overtime, second jobs, and penny pinching. I remember darning his socks by lamplight after he went to bed, determined that no one would ever know we were struggling. Despite our limited means, Anthony was a bright child with unlimited potential. When his teachers suggested he apply to private school, I took on a third job cleaning offices at night to afford the tuition. My hands cracked and bled from industrial cleaners, but seeing his excited face when he was accepted made every moment worth it. "Mom, this is going to change everything for us," he told me, his eyes shining with the innocent certainty of youth. "One day I'll make so much money you'll never have to work again." I never wanted him to feel burdened by me, so I would smile and say, "Just be happy, that is all I need." And I meant it. His happiness was everything to me. Anthony excelled academically, earning a scholarship to a prestigious university where he studied finance. I worked extra shifts to send him care packages and ensure he had professional clothes for interviews. When he landed his first Wall Street job, I could not have been prouder. My son in a tailored suit working in a glass tower office. It seemed the struggles were finally behind us. It was at a company event that Anthony met Judith, a sleek marketing executive with impeccable clothes and a cold smile. From our first meeting, something about her put me on edge. She appraised my department store dress with a quick glance that made me feel small despite my best outfit. "Anthony has told me so little about you," she said, her tone suggesting this was my failing rather than his. Still, I was determined to love whoever made my son happy. I brought homemade dishes to their dinners, knitted Judith a scarf for Christmas, and never mentioned how she would subtly correct my grammar or explain wine terminology I had not asked about. Their wedding was lavish, held at a countryside estate. I could never have afforded to contribute to meaningfully. Anthony assured me that her parents were handling everything. "Just show up, Mom. That is all we need from you," he said. I noticed the "we" and felt the first real distance growing between us. After the wedding, the cooling of our relationship accelerated. Sunday phone calls became monthly, then quarterly. Invitations to dinner were canceled last minute when something came up at work. Each time I told myself not to take it personally. My son was building his own life, his own family. This was natural. The pandemic created more distance, with safety concerns providing a convenient reason to maintain separation. 2 years passed with only video calls, which grew shorter and less frequent. When restrictions lifted, I expected things to return to normal, but the excuses continued. Last Christmas had been particularly difficult. Alone in my apartment with a small turkey breast and store-bought pie, I watched old home videos of Anthony opening presents as a child. His delight at the simplest gifts now seemed part of another life entirely. This year would be different, I decided. I would bridge the gap between us with a truly special gift. My father had left me his gold pocket watch, a family heirloom with an estimated value of $50,000. The watch had survived 2 world wars, the Great Depression, and all the tumult of the 20th century. It was our family's most precious possession, and I had always intended for Anthony to have it someday. I had it professionally cleaned and appraised its value confirmed in writing. The jeweler placed it in a handsome wooden box with a velvet interior wrapped in silver paper. This gift would show Anthony what he meant to me. Surely receiving such a significant piece of his heritage would remind him of our bond, of the family history we shared. I called Anthony in early December, leaving a cheerful message about Christmas plans. 3 days later, he returned my call. "About Christmas, Mom," he said, sounding distracted. "We are having some people over. Business associates of mine and Judith's friends. You could come by in the afternoon if you want." Not the warm invitation I had hoped for, but an invitation nonetheless. I accepted immediately before he could change his mind. "That would be wonderful," I said already, planning the cookies I would bake. "I have something special to give you this year." "You do not have to give me anything, Mom," he said, a hint of impatience in his voice. "We have everything we need." "It is not about need," I told him. "It is about family." There was a pause before he responded. "Right. Family. I will text you the details." As I hung up, I felt a flutter of hope. This Christmas would bring us closer. The watch would remind him of where he came from, of the grandfather he had adored as a child. With that hope warming my heart, I began preparing for what I believed would be a turning point in our relationship. Christmas Eve arrived with an Arctic blast that sent temperatures plummeting. The morning news warned of dangerous cold, with wind chill dropping to 7 degrees by afternoon. Meteorologists advised people to stay home if possible, but there was no question of canceling my plans. I had been looking forward to this day for weeks, carefully preparing everything to make it perfect. I woke early to finish baking the last batch of Anthony's favorite cookies, gingerbread with lemon icing. The recipe was one my mother had taught me, and I had made them every Christmas since Anthony was a toddler. The familiar smell of ginger and molasses filled my small apartment, bringing back memories of Christmas mornings with a pajama-clad little boy eagerly searching for presents under our modest tree. The cookies joined 3 others' varieties in decorative tins packed carefully, so they would not break. I wrapped the last few presents for Anthony, Judith, and their home, though the most important gift, the pocket watch, had been wrapped days ago and sat waiting in my purse. I checked it one last time, making sure the appraisal certificate was tucked safely inside the box. "This will mean so much to him," I whispered to myself, tracing the silver wrapping paper with one finger. By noon, I was dressed in my best winter outfit, a dark green wool dress with a matching coat I had splurged on last year. I pinned my silver hair up neatly and applied a touch of lipstick, wanting to look presentable for Anthony's sophisticated friends. The effort to appear younger than my 68 years was probably foolish, but I could not help wanting to make my son proud. The sky outside was a bleak gray, threatening snow. I called for a ride service, unwilling to risk public transportation with my armload of gifts and food. The driver helped me load everything into his car, commenting on the worsening weather. "You sure you want to go out in this, ma'am? They are saying it is only getting colder." "It is Christmas," I said simply. "I am visiting my son." He nodded, understanding family obligations. The drive across town took longer than expected traffic, crawling due to icy roads. I watched the city pass by decorated storefronts and light displays blurring as we drove from my modest neighborhood toward the affluent suburb where Anthony and Judith had purchased their home 2 years ago. I had visited only once before, for a housewarming that had felt more like a showcase for Judith's decorating skills than a family gathering. As we turned into their neighborhood, I felt the familiar mixture of pride and unease. The houses here were impressive, set back from the street behind manicured landscaping, now dusted with snow. Anthony had achieved the success I had always wanted for him, yet somehow that success had built a wall between us. We pulled up to their address, a large colonial-style house with pristine white pillars and wreaths in every window. Warm light spilled from inside, and I could see their massive Christmas tree through the front window, at least 9 feet tall, and decorated in a coordinated silver and blue theme. Nothing like our mismatched ornaments from my childhood, but beautiful in its perfect magazine-worthy way. The driver helped me unload my packages onto the sidewalk. I overtipped him significantly, feeling the Christmas spirit despite the biting cold that immediately penetrated my coat. "Merry Christmas," he said, looking concerned as he eyed my packages. "You need help getting that to the door." "I can manage," I assured him, not wanting to impose. "Thank you for asking." As his taillights disappeared down the street, I gathered my belongings and made my way carefully up the salted walkway to the front door. My arms were full with cookie tins and gifts, the precious watch box secure in my coat pocket. I could hear music and laughter from inside, the sounds of a Christmas gathering in full swing. The porch was decorated with tasteful greenery and white lights, a stark contrast to the colorful, sometimes tacky decorations of my childhood holidays. A large wreath hung on the door, adorned with blue velvet ribbon and silver ornaments that matched what I could see of the tree inside. Standing there, I felt a wave of nervousness. Would I fit into this elegant scene? Would Anthony's friends find me interesting, or would I embarrass him with my simple ways? I pushed these thoughts aside. I was his mother. That should be enough. I shifted my packages to free one hand and pressed the doorbell. The chime inside was followed by a momentary lull in conversation, then the click of footsteps approaching. I straightened my shoulders and put on my warmest smile. The door swung open, and there stood Anthony. My heart swelled at the sight of him, handsome in a cashmere sweater, his father's strong jawline, and my eyes looking back at me. For a split second, his face showed the open smile I remembered from years ago. Then, something changed. His expression shifted as he registered who stood before him, the smile faltering his eyes, darting nervously over my shoulder as if checking whether anyone else could see me on his doorstep. That split-second change told me everything I needed to know about my place in his life, but I refused to acknowledge it, maintaining my own smile with stubborn determination. "Merry Christmas, Anthony," I said, my voice, betraying none of the hurt I already felt. I made it despite the cold. Behind him, the sounds of a party in progress filtered into the frigid air between us. The smell of expensive catering, so different from my homemade cookies, wafted from inside. Through the doorway, I caught glimpses of well-dressed people with champagne flutes gathered in the living room I had only seen once before. It was everything I had imagined his life would be: successful and beautiful, and I was beginning to realize with a sinking heart completely separate from me. Anthony did not invite me in. Instead, he stepped outside and pulled the door nearly closed behind him, leaving just enough space to maintain the warmth inside, while keeping me firmly on the porch. The message was clear, though I desperately tried to ignore it. "Mom," he said, his voice lower now. "I thought you were coming later. We have guests." "You said afternoon," I reminded him gently, fighting to keep disappointment from my tone. "It is almost 3. I brought cookies and gifts." I lifted the packages slightly, as if he might not have noticed them. He glanced at the cookie tins with what looked like genuine regret, then back at the nearly closed door behind him. "It is not a good time," he said. "The party is just getting started. These are important people, Mom. Clients, colleagues, friends of Judith's from her agency." Through the narrow opening in the door, I caught sight of Judith approaching. She wore a sleek blue dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, her blonde hair arranged in an elegant updo. When she saw me, her expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "Anthony," she called, her voice honey-sweet, "everyone is asking where you disappeared to." She appeared beside him, now placing a possessive hand on his arm. "Oh, Penny," she said, as if just noticing me. "What a surprise." "I invited her for Christmas," Anthony said quickly, "but there has been a misunderstanding about the timing." Judith's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose slightly. "I see. Well, we are in the middle of things now. Perhaps another day would be better." A woman's voice called from inside Anthony. "Who was at the door?" I saw a panic flash across my son's face, followed by a decision that would break my heart. He stepped further outside, pulling the door closed behind him, cutting off my view of the warm gathering inside. Now it was just the 3 of us on the porch, the cold air biting through my coat. "Mom," he said, his voice strained, "there is something you should know. The people inside, my colleagues, they do not know about, they think." "They think what?" I asked, confused by his obvious distress. Judith answered for him, her voice matter of fact. "They think his parents are dead, both of them." The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked at Anthony, waiting for him to deny it, to say it was some kind of terrible joke, but the shame on his face confirmed what Judith had said. Why would they think that? I whispered. Anthony could not meet my eyes. It just made things simpler. For my career advancement, the partners at my firm, they all come from certain backgrounds. Old money connections. Having a single mother who worked as a secretary and cleaner, it does not fit the narrative. The narrative, I repeated the words, tasting bitter. "So you told people I was dead. Your own mother." It was not like that he insisted, though it was exactly like that. I just let people assume. And now all these people are here, people who think I am an orphan. If you come inside, it will create questions I cannot answer. I stood there, packages growing heavy in my arms, the cold seeping into my bones, but nothing as cold as the realization washing over me. My son was ashamed of me. So ashamed that he had erased my existence from his carefully constructed life. I see, I said, my voice somehow steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. You would rather I did not exist than explain me to your important friends. Mom, please understand, Anthony pleaded, looking genuinely distressed now. It is complicated. My position at the firm, these clients, they expect a certain image. I cannot undo years of lies I finished for him. Years of lies. Judith sighed impatiently. Anthony, people are waiting. The Morgans are asking about the investment opportunity. He looked torn for a brief moment, then his face hardened with decision. I am sorry, Mom. Today just will not work. Stay outside, you are not welcome. Not today. We can talk about this another time. I stood frozen, the words echoing in my mind. Stay outside. You are not welcome. From my own son on Christmas Day, in the brutal cold. I found my voice, though it sounded distant to my own ears. I brought your Christmas gift. Something special. I reached into my pocket for the watch box. Not now, Mom, he said, eyeing the door anxiously. I have to get back inside. But this is important, I insisted, holding out the silver-wrapped box. It was your grandfather's. Anthony glanced at the small package, hesitation flickering across his face. Then Judith opened the door slightly, letting out a burst of laughter and music, a reminder of the world waiting for him inside. Just take the cookies, he said, reaching for the tins. We will talk later, I promise. He took the cookie tins from my arms, but left the wrapped gifts, including the precious watch. As he stepped back toward the door, I caught a glimpse of the party inside. Beautiful people in a beautiful room, living a beautiful lie. Anthony, I said, one last attempt. It is Christmas. For a moment I thought I saw regret in his eyes. Then Judith took his arm, pulling him back inside. Merry Christmas, Penny, she said with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Drive safely. The door closed firmly, leaving me alone on the porch with my unwanted gifts and the small silver box containing our family's heritage. The sound of laughter resumed inside, uninterrupted by my presence, as if I had never been there at all. I stood motionless, unable to process what had just happened. The cold air burned my lungs, or perhaps it was the effort not to cry. I felt the first tears fall, freezing almost instantly on my cheeks in the brutal cold. 70 years of life, and nothing had prepared me for this moment, for being erased by the person I loved most in the world. In that moment, shivering on the porch with my son's $50,000 gift in my hands, something inside me began to change. The hurt was still there, a gaping wound that might never fully heal, but underneath it I felt the first stirrings of something else. Something that felt like anger, like dignity, like the determination not to be treated this way by anyone, not even my only child. I turned away from the door, carefully placing the gifts back in my tote bag, including the precious watch. Whatever happened next, I would not leave it with someone who valued appearances over truth. As I made my way back down the icy walkway, my phone felt heavy in my pocket. I knew I would call him later, would try again to reach the son I had raised. But for now, I needed warmth, both physical and emotional, and it was clear I would not find either one here. The temperature had dropped even further by the time I reached the end of Anthony's driveway. My tears had stopped, frozen by both the cold and a strange numbness that had settled over me. I stood at the curb, suddenly realizing I had no return transportation arranged. I had assumed, foolishly it seemed now, that I would be spending hours with my son and his family before needing a ride home. My fingers were too stiff with cold to easily operate my phone, but I managed to request a ride. The app warned of limited availability due to the holiday and weather conditions. Estimated wait time 45 minutes. I could not stand in the open cold that long. Looking around, I spotted a coffee shop about 2 blocks away, its windows glowing warmly. Clutching my bag of rejected gifts, I began walking carefully along the icy sidewalk, each step taking me further from my son's house, but no further from the pain of his rejection. The coffee shop was nearly empty, just a barista, and 2 other customers seeking refuge from family celebrations, or like me with nowhere else to go. The young woman behind the counter looked up, as the door chimed, her practiced customer service smile faltering slightly when she saw my tear-stained face. Rough day, she asked gently as I approached the counter. You could say that I replied, ordering the largest, hottest coffee they offered. She refused payment. It is on the house. Merry Christmas. This small kindness from a stranger nearly undid me. I thanked her with a trembling voice and found a table near the window where I could watch for my ride. As the warmth of the shop began to thaw my frozen hands and face, the emotional numbness wore off too, leaving raw pain in its place. I took out my phone and did what any mother would do. I called my son. The call went straight to voicemail. I left a message asking him to please call me back, that we needed to talk. Then I called again, and again, each time reaching only his recorded voice promising to return the call. Between calls, I stared out the window at the darkening street, watching holiday revelers hurry by, heading to or from celebrations. Families walking together, couples hand in hand, all with places to be people who wanted them there. The contrast to my situation was unbearable. By my 12th unanswered call, the coffee shop was preparing to close. The barista approached with a to-go cup. "We are closing in a few minutes," she said, "but I made you a fresh one to take with you." "Thank you," I said, accepting the cup. "My ride should be here soon." "Family trouble?" she asked, her young face showing genuine concern. "My son," I admitted. He told his friends I was dead. He would not let me into his Christmas party because it would expose his lie." Saying it aloud made it sound even more heartbreaking, even more unbelievable. The barista's eyes widened. "That is messed up," she said with youthful directness. "Like seriously messed up." Her simple validation meant more than she could know. Yes, I agreed. It is. My phone showed 33 missed calls to Anthony. Each one represented a moment of hope followed by disappointment. I would make many more before the night was through. When my ride finally arrived, the driver was sympathetically quiet, sensing my distress. Back in my apartment, the contrast between my modest decorations and the glimpse I had caught of Anthony's lavish home was stark. My small tree with its collection of handmade ornaments, many created by Anthony's childhood hands, seemed to mock me now. I set the unopened presents under the tree, including the watchbox. Then I did something I had never done in all my years as a mother. I pulled out a bottle of brandy I kept for cooking and poured myself a generous glass. The alcohol burned going down, but did nothing to ease the cold knot in my chest. I continued calling Anthony throughout the evening. At one point, Judith answered. "Penny, this has to stop," she said, her voice clipped. "You are ruining our party. Anthony cannot deal with this right now." "Please," I said, hating the pleading in my voice, "just let me speak to my son." "He will call you tomorrow," she said, then hung up. I did not believe her, but I had no choice but to wait. I spent the night alternating between tears and anger, looking through old photo albums of Anthony growing up. His first day of school, him proudly holding up a fish he had caught on a rare vacation we could afford, his high school graduation, where he had been valedictorian. In every photo, his smile was open and real, his eyes looking directly at the camera at me. When had that boy become a man who could leave his mother shivering in the cold? When had he decided I was an embarrassment, rather than the parent who had sacrificed everything for him? Christmas morning dawned gray and silent. No call from Anthony. I made myself coffee and sat beside my phone, the unwrapped gifts still under the tree, including the precious watch that represented generations of our family's history. History that Anthony had denied, had erased in favor of a more convenient, more impressive fiction. By midday, my calls to Anthony had reached 77. Not one had been answered. I finally stopped accepting that he had made his choice. He had chosen his carefully constructed life of appearances over the mother who had given him life, who had worked her fingers raw to give him opportunities, who had loved him without condition or reservation. The revelation was as cold as the winter air outside, but in its clarity I found a strange kind of strength. If my son could discard me so easily, perhaps it was time I protected myself, my dignity, and what remained of my life and resources. The thought settled in my mind as the Christmas day wore on, a seed of resolution taking root where only hurt had been before. Tomorrow, I decided I would see what options I had. Not for revenge, but for self-preservation. The woman who had raised Anthony alone had been strong enough to survive whatever life threw at her. It was time to remember that strength. The day after Christmas, I woke to the ping of an email notification. Still half asleep, I reached for my phone, a reflexive hope that it might be Anthony finally responding. Instead, it was an email addressed to Anthony that had somehow come to me. "Mr. Harrington, The documents for your mother's power of attorney have been updated as requested. Please review the attached changes regarding the medical decisions and property management clauses. As discussed, these modifications will grant you complete control over all decisions in case of any incapacity, real or perceived. The nursing home placement documentation is also attached for your signature. I stared at the screen, unable to process what I was reading. The email had been sent by someone named Gregory Palmer at a law firm I did not recognize. Apparently, the sender had mistakenly included my email, along with Anthony's. Power of attorney nursing home placement. I had never discussed any such arrangements with Anthony. A cold feeling different from yesterday's hurt settled in my stomach. Something was very wrong. I opened the attachments with shaking fingers. There it was, a comprehensive power of attorney document, with my name on it, granting Anthony control over every aspect of my life, my health care, my property, and my finances. The document even included a provision allowing him to make decisions if he merely claimed I was incapacitated without requiring medical confirmation. The second attachment was even more disturbing: pre-approval paperwork for a nursing home called Evergreen Meadows. I had never heard of it. A quick internet search revealed it was a low-rated facility on the outskirts of town, known for accepting Medicare patients with minimal additional payment. My mind raced back over the past few years. Anthony had periodically asked me to sign various documents, always presented as routine financial matters that he was taking care of for me. Had I signed a power of attorney without realizing it? Had I been so trusting, so eager to believe in his care for me, that I had given him this control? With growing unease, I began searching through my financial records. My modest retirement account, which should have contained just over $60,000, showed numerous withdrawals I had never made. Transfer after transfer to an account I did not recognize, each one labeled as investment management fee or property maintenance. Over the past 3 years, nearly $40,000 had been systematically drained from my retirement savings. Money I had scrimped and saved working well past normal retirement age to accumulate. Gone. Further investigation revealed my mortgage had been refinanced without my knowledge, with Anthony listed as a co-beneficiary of the property. Credit cards I had never applied for were opened in my name, all maxed out with charges for luxury items I would never buy: designer clothing, high-end electronics, first-class travel. The picture emerging was so shocking, so contrary to the son I thought. I knew that I found myself gasping for breath. This was not just a son ashamed of his working-class mother. This was calculated financial exploitation. The email's reference to nursing home placement suddenly took on a sinister meaning. Was Anthony planning to declare me incompetent, place me in a substandard facility, and take control of my house and what remained of my assets? The betrayal felt physical, a blow to my body as well as my heart. The son I had sacrificed everything for had not only erased me from his public life, but had been systematically stealing from me, setting the stage for what amounted to elder abuse. I printed everything, creating a file of evidence. Bank statements, credit reports, the mistakenly sent email, the power of attorney I had no memory of signing. Looking at the signature on that document more closely, I wondered if it was even my own. It looked similar to my handwriting, but with subtle differences that made me question its authenticity. As the evidence mounted on my kitchen table, my sadness transformed. The tears that had flowed so freely yesterday dried up, replaced by a cold, clear anger. This was not just a hurtful rejection. This was criminal. This was predatory. This was a violation of the most sacred trust between parent and child. I thought again of Anthony standing in his doorway, refusing to let me in. "Stay outside, you are not welcome." The memory still hurt, but now I understood it had not been merely shame driving his rejection. It had been fear. Fear that his web of financial manipulation might be exposed if his colleagues knew his mother was very much alive and unaware of how he was using her identity and resources. Everything shifted in that moment of clarity. The mother who would have forgiven anything, who would have continued calling and pleading for reconciliation, hardened into someone new. Someone who would not be a victim, not even to her own beloved child. I looked at the family pocket watch still in its silver-wrapped box. The gift I had planned to give Anthony, a $50,000 heirloom representing generations of our family. How fortunate that he had refused to take it yesterday. It would have likely been sold or pawned within days. My hands steady now, I picked up my phone. Not to call Anthony again, not to plead or question or try to understand why. Those 77 unanswered calls would be the last I ever made to him in that spirit of maternal forgiveness. Instead, I searched for something else, the contact information for an elder law attorney. It was time to protect myself, my future, and what remained of my assets. The woman who had raised a child alone, who had worked 3 jobs to give him opportunities, was still inside me, and she was nobody's victim. The law office of Linda Goldstein was located in a converted Victorian house downtown. Despite the post-holiday schedule, Linda had agreed to see me immediately after I briefly explained my situation over the phone. Financial exploitation of seniors is always an emergency, she had said, her voice conveying both compassion and competence. I arrived with my folder of evidence, still struggling to believe what I had discovered. Linda was a woman about 20 years my junior, with silver-streaked dark hair and kind eyes behind stylish glasses. Her office was warm and inviting, nothing like the intimidating legal spaces depicted on television. "Miss Harrington," she said, extending her hand. "I am very sorry about what brings you here today." "Please call me Penny," I replied, taking a seat across from her desk. "Penny, then, why do not you tell me what has happened, and we will figure out how to help you." For the next hour, I laid out everything from the Christmas rejection to the accidental email to the financial discoveries I had made. Linda took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions, her expression growing increasingly concerned. "Unfortunately," she said when I finished, "what you are describing is not uncommon. Elder financial abuse is rampant, and family members are often the perpetrators. What makes your case particularly troubling is the sophistication and extent of the exploitation." She examined the power of attorney document carefully. "Do you recall signing this?" "No," I admitted. "Anthony would sometimes bring papers for me to sign saying they were routine financial matters he was handling for me, but I never knowingly signed a power of attorney." Linda studied the signature. "We should have this examined by a handwriting expert. It may be forged. Even if you did sign it, if it was misrepresented to you, we have grounds to challenge its validity." She outlined our immediate steps: freezing my credit, securing my bank accounts, revoking the power of attorney, and filing police reports for identity theft and financial fraud. "What about Anthony?" I asked, my voice catching despite my resolve. "He is still my son." Linda's eyes softened. "I understand this is extremely difficult. Many of my clients struggle with taking legal action against family members. But Penny, what Anthony has done is not just hurtful, it is criminal. And based on that email, he was planning worse." She showed me the nursing home placement documents again. Evergreen Meadows is not a place anyone should end up, especially not someone with other options. If Anthony had succeeded in having you declared incompetent and placed there, it would have been very difficult to reverse. The reality of what my son had planned settled over me like a heavy blanket. "I need to protect myself." I said more to myself than to Linda. "Yes, you do," she agreed. "And we are going to make sure that happens." Over the next week, Linda and I worked systematically to secure my finances and begin legal proceedings. We filed fraud reports with the police and financial institutions. We revoked the power of attorney and sent cease and desist letters to Anthony and any entity that might be operating under his direction regarding my affairs. Linda also helped me secure my house, changing the locks and installing a simple security system. "If he has keys, we cannot take chances," she explained. Throughout this process, Anthony made one attempt to contact me, not with a call but with a text message. "Mom, we need to talk about some financial arrangements I have made for your benefit. Call me." I showed the message to Linda, who advised me not to respond directly. Instead, she sent a formal legal communication, informing Anthony that all contact should go through her office, and that I was aware of his financial activities involving my accounts and identity. His response was swift and revealing. He showed up at my house that evening, pounding on the door, alternating between threats and declarations of concern for my mental state. "Mom, you are confused," he called through the door. "Let me explain. You are making a big mistake involving lawyers." I did not open the door, but I did activate the recording feature on my phone as Linda had instructed. "You need help, Mom," he continued, his voice growing angrier. "I was trying to protect you to manage your finances because you cannot do it yourself. If you push this, I will have you evaluated for dementia. No one will believe you over me." His words, so blatantly manipulative and threatening, strengthened my resolve. This was not my son speaking, not the boy I had raised. This was someone I did not know, someone capable of calculated exploitation of his own mother. When he finally left, I called Linda and played the recording. "This is actually helpful for our case," she said. "He has essentially admitted to taking control of your finances while threatening to falsely claim you are incompetent. Keep recording any interactions, but continue to avoid direct contact." The legal process moved forward. We were able to recover some of the stolen funds, though much was already gone spent on Anthony's lifestyle or hidden in accounts we could not immediately access. Linda filed an emergency petition to invalidate the power of attorney, which was granted based on the evidence of misrepresentation and potential forgery. The most difficult decision came when Linda asked about my will and estate planning. "Currently, is Anthony your primary beneficiary?" "Yes," I admitted. "I never considered anything else." "Given the circumstances, I strongly recommend revising your will," she advised. "You are not obligated to leave anything to someone who has financially exploited you, even if that person is your child." The thought of disinheriting my only son despite everything brought fresh pain. "I need to think about that," I said. "Of course," Linda replied gently. "This is entirely your decision. But I want you to know that it is a valid and reasonable option, not just legally but ethically. You worked hard for what you have. It should go to people or causes that value and respect you." That night, I took out the pocket watch again, still in its Christmas wrapping, the gift I had been so eager to give Anthony, the tangible link to our family history. I carefully unwrapped it, revealing the beautiful timepiece that had passed from my grandfather to my father to me. It had survived wars, economic depressions, and countless personal challenges. It was meant to be Anthony's legacy. As I held it in my hand, feeling its solid weight and listening to its steady tick, I made my decision. The next morning, I called Linda. "I want to change my will," I said. "Anthony will not be my beneficiary, and I want to pursue all possible legal remedies for what he has done, including criminal charges if appropriate." Linda's voice was supportive but cautious. "Are you certain? Once we move forward with criminal charges, it may permanently affect your relationship." "The relationship is already destroyed," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "He chose that when he decided to exploit me rather than honor me. I deserve justice and protection." With that decision, the final step in my transformation from victim to advocate for my own well-being was complete. As painful as it was, there was also a sense of reclaiming my power, my dignity, and my future from someone who had tried to steal all three. The legal proceedings would take time, but I was prepared for the journey ahead. It was not the future I had envisioned, fighting my own son in court, rather than enjoying his company and support in my later years. But it was a future where I stood up for myself, where I refused to be erased or exploited by anyone, even someone I had once loved more than life itself. 6 months passed, bringing spring and its promise of renewal. The legal proceedings against Anthony had progressed with mixed results, but overall vindication. The criminal charges for identity theft and fraud had resulted in a plea deal, sparing both of us the pain of a trial. He received probation and was ordered to make restitution, though I held little hope of seeing the full amount returned. The civil case Linda had filed to recover my assets was ongoing, but we had succeeded in invalidating the fraudulent power of attorney and securing my home and remaining finances. Anthony's career had suffered once his actions became known, another consequence he likely had not anticipated when he began exploiting me. During these months of legal battles, I had begun rebuilding my life in ways I never expected. Linda had introduced me to a support group for parents estranged from adult children, particularly those who had experienced financial exploitation. There I found understanding, without judgment, strength in shared experiences, and eventually friendships that helped fill the void Anthony's betrayal had left. Margaret, a retired teacher whose daughter had emptied her accounts before disappearing, became particularly close. The hardest part, she told me during one of our weekly coffee meetings, is accepting that we did not cause this. We keep looking for where we went wrong as parents. I still do that, I admitted, especially at night. I review every decision, every moment of his childhood, looking for the turning point. But there might not be one, Margaret said gently. Some people just make terrible choices regardless of how they were raised. What matters now is how we choose to live after the betrayal." Her words resonated deeply. How I chose to live after the betrayal would define this chapter of my life, not the betrayal itself. With that understanding, I began volunteering at a local youth center working with teenagers who lacked family support. Many came from foster care or homes affected by addiction or incarceration. My experience as a single mother who had navigated poverty while raising a child gave me insights they responded to. "You actually get it," said Darnell, a 16-year-old with remarkable artistic talent, but a history of academic struggles. "Most adults just tell us to try harder like that fixes everything." Working with these young people gave me purpose and joy I had thought was lost forever. Their resilience inspired me, and their appreciation for simple guidance and encouragement healed parts of my heart that had been shattered on that cold Christmas porch. In April, Anthony reached out through his attorney seeking reconciliation now that the legal consequences of his actions had become clear. His career was in jeopardy, his reputation damaged. Judith had left him unwilling to stay with someone whose professional future was now uncertain. Suddenly, he remembered he had a mother. "He says he regrets his actions and wants to make amends," Linda told me, relaying the message. "He is asking for a meeting." 6 months earlier, I would have jumped at this opportunity, eager to rebuild the relationship I had treasured above all others. Now, I found myself hesitating, protective of the new peace I had found. "What do you think I should do?" I asked Linda, who had become both my attorney and my friend. "Legally, there is no reason to meet," she said. "But personally, that is entirely your decision. Meeting might provide closure or it might reopen wounds. Only you can weigh that balance." I considered it, carefully consulting with my support group and spending long hours in reflection. In the end, I agreed to one meeting on neutral ground with Linda present. Anthony looked diminished when I saw him, the polished confidence replaced by nervous uncertainty. He had prepared a speech full of apologies and explanations about pressure and poor choices. I listened silently until he finished. Then I said the words I had practiced, words that set boundaries rather than offered absolution. "I accept that you regret your actions now that they have consequences for you," I told him. "But regret is not the same as genuine remorse or understanding. You were willing to put me in a substandard nursing home to gain control of my assets. You lied about me being dead because you were ashamed of your working-class background. These are not momentary lapses, but sustained choices that reveal character." His face crumpled. "I can change, Mom. I will prove it to you." "Perhaps you can," I acknowledged. "But that work is yours. To do not mine to monitor or validate. I have built a new life that brings me peace and purpose. I will not risk that for promises that may be as empty as your previous shows of concern for my welfare." "Are you saying you will never forgive me?" he asked, a note of the old entitlement creeping into his voice. "I am saying that forgiveness and reconciliation are different things," I explained. "I can forgive you for my own peace of mind, without allowing you back into a position where you can hurt me again. Trust once broken so completely cannot be repaired with words alone." It was not the answer he wanted, but it was the truth as I now understood it. We parted without the emotional resolution he had sought, but with clear boundaries that would protect my hard-won recovery. The following week, I made a decision about the family pocket watch, the $50,000 heirloom I had intended to give Anthony. After consultation with a museum curator, I donated it to the City Historical Society, where it would be displayed with other artifacts from the era, along with the story of my father and grandfather. It would remain part of our family legacy, but in a way that honored, rather than exploited, that history. As summer approached, I found myself reflecting on the extraordinary journey of the past 6 months. From the devastating rejection on that freezing Christmas porch, to the painful discoveries of betrayal, to the slow, steady rebuilding of a life I could embrace with pride. The woman who had stood shivering with an unwanted gift, making desperate calls that went unanswered, had transformed. Not into someone hardened by betrayal, though that would have been understandable, but into someone who had found strength in vulnerability, community in loss, and purpose in pain. I still had moments of profound sadness, for what might have been for the son I had loved, and the relationship I had treasured. But those moments no longer defined me, or my days. Instead, I focused on the young people I mentored, the friends who had become my chosen family, and the quiet dignity of living authentically without pretense or shame about my working-class background or simple lifestyle. The greatest lesson from this painful chapter was one I now shared with the teenagers at the youth center. Our value comes not from how others treat us, but from how we respond to that treatment. We cannot control whether people appreciate our sacrifices or honor our love. We can only control our own actions, our own boundaries, and our own determination to live with integrity. As I sit here now watching summer light filter through my window, I feel a peace that once seemed impossible. The pocket watch is where it belongs, honored in a museum rather than hidden away by someone ashamed of its humble origins. My finances are secure, my home is safe, and my heart, though scarred, continues to find reasons to open rather than close. This is not the ending I would have chosen for my story with Anthony, but it is an authentic one, rooted in truth rather than wishful thinking. And in that truth, I have found not just survival, but genuine healing and unexpected joy. What would you do? If someone you loved deeply betrayed your trust, how do you balance forgiveness with self-protection? Have you ever had to rebuild your life after a profound disappointment? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to join our community of shared experiences and healing. And remember, sometimes the greatest gift we can give ourselves is the courage to say enough to those who do not value us, even when that person is family. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you strength on yours.